Welcome to today's deep dive. You know, when we think of an illness, we usually picture something biological, right?
Right, like a virus or bacteria.
Yeah, exactly. You get a cough, maybe you run a fever, you take a pill, and hopefully your immune system just kind of clears it out.
It's a temporary malfunction of the physical body. It is contained within the boundaries of your own skin.
Right.
And we have entire medical frameworks built around diagnosing it and, treating it.
But what if there was an illness that didn't incubate in your cells, but actually took root in your soul?
Oh, that's a heavy concept.
It really is a disease so fundamentally corrosive that it doesn't just destroy your own physical immune system, but it's actually contagious enough to pollute an entire society.
Yeah, and we are talking about a condition that today's source material claims can literally freeze harmonious atmospheres.
Right.
Like it can drive whole groups of people toward violence.
And the wildest part about this is the author doesn't call this disease a virus or a plague.
No, they don't.
They call it jealousy.
Yeah. We are looking at a bilingual text today by an author identified as Deformed Celestial, and it's titled There is No Jealousy in the Paradise.
Which is such a striking title.
It really is. And I should note, this isn't a self-help pamphlet offering light advice on how to be a better friend.
No, definitely not.
It's a philosophical survival guide. It frames envy as an apocalyptic threat to your spiritual existence.
Which is exactly the kind of text we love to pull apart.
Hey.
Because the author doesn't just say, hey, don't be jealous, it's a bad look.
Right, they go much further.
They elevate a universal human emotion, something every single one of you listening has felt at some point, into a terminal diagnosis.
Yeah, the text defines jealousy as a symbol of a flawed, non-material structure of life.
Wow.
And an illness of one's soul.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second.
Mm.
The author is treating jealousy almost like a spiritual autoimmune disease.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. It attacks the host from the inside out, completely destroying their immune system, making them exhausted. But then it somehow breaches containment to infect the family, the workplace, and ultimately the broader society.
Yeah, let's examine the mechanics of how the author claims that infection spreads, because the text connects the metaphysical directly to the physical.
How so?
Well, it explicitly states that jealousy acts as a poison that actively destroys your immune system and causes profound mental exhaustion.
Which, makes sense if you think about it.
Right. If you think about the sheer amount of cognitive energy it takes to harbor resentment.
Oh, totally. Constantly monitoring someone else's success.
Exactly. And trying to mask your own bitterness while you do it, that is a massive drain on the body's resources.
Exhausting.
It is. And the author suggests that this internal friction manifests physically, but as you noted, it doesn't stop with the individual.
It spreads.
Yeah. The text outlines a ripple effect. This internal rot breaks the harmony of small families first, causes painful divisions in communities, and ultimately pushes a whole society toward ignorance.
And the vocabulary the author uses to describe this progression is just stark.
It's very intense.
Yeah, jealousy is labeled a dark emotion that's terrified of the light. It's described as a sharp and underhanded knife.
A knife whose essence is vicious.
Right. Just waiting for an opportunity to put the other person to death. The text actually calls it a quality of demon.
Yes, quality of demon.
But I have to pause here, though, and look at the underlying assumption. Because is the author purely talking about the basic resentment of someone having better things?
Like what?
Like being bitter that your neighbor bought a bigger house? Or is the text pointing to a more systemic, foundational insecurity in human nature?
What's fascinating here is it is definitely pointing to a deeper, almost architectural corruption of the human psyche.
Okay.
The text describes a pivotal moment when jealousy bursts forth from the gates of reason.
The gates of reason. That's an interesting phrase.
That phrasing is vital. The author views jealousy not as a fleeting mood that just watches over you, but as a subterranean force.
Operating beneath the surface.
Exactly. We try to keep it contained behind a wall of rationality and societal politeness.
Sure, we smile and nod.
Right. But when the pressure gets too high, it breaks through that rational barrier. And when it erupts, the text says it appears as hatred, fights, blasphemy, vandalism, and hysteria.
Just total chaos.
Yeah, it instantly destroys harmony. The author's arguing that jealousy fundamentally cannot coexist with peace. It is an active, destructive force.
Which creates an existential threat to peace. If you have this emotion, you are essentially a walking hazard to the harmony of any group you enter.
Exactly.
And that sweeping, almost epic framing makes the next section of the text entirely jarring.
Oh, the tone shift is wild.
It really is. We transition from these massive demonic descriptions of societal collapse right down into the most relatable, mundane scenarios imaginable.
Yeah, the author provides a hyper-specific inventory of what constitutes this demonic jealousy.
It brings the philosophy right down to the pavement. Yeah. Let's walk through some of these because I guarantee every person listening has either done this or experienced it.
Oh, 100%.
The very first example, you're riding a bicycle and you feel upset when you see people driving cars.
Just a flash of annoyance.
Right. Or you see a smartly dressed woman and you give her a contemptuous look. Or your spouse is talking to someone else and your face just drops. You look gloomy.
Notice what the author is focusing on there, though.
The small stuff.
Right. It isn't the act of throwing a rock at the passing car or yelling at the smartly dressed woman. It is the involuntary physiological response.
The gloomy face.
Exactly, the internal souring. The author is diagnosing the disease at the level of microexpressions.
Because those involuntary reactions prove that the resentment is instinctual, not logical.
Spot on.
Think about how this applies to you today. It is the exact same micro-emotion you feel when you're scrolling on your phone and you see a former coworker post about a massive promotion.
Yep.
The text specifically mentions seeing someone get a promotion, move into a new house, or buy a new car, and your reaction is simply to say, so what?
That phrase, so what, is a brilliant inclusion by the author.
It's so common.
It is. And on the surface, it sounds like indifference, like you just don't care.
Right.
But the text diagnoses it as a direct manifestation of this demonic quality. It is a verbal dismissal used to shrink someone else's achievement so that your own ego doesn't feel as small.
It's an attempt to level the playing field by dragging them down rather than elevating yourself.
Exactly.
And the text traces this all the way back to the living room carpet. It talks about siblings throwing tantrums or looking for excuses to be difficult just because their parents bought new clothes for a brother or sister.
It starts so early.
It really does. And it calls out this specific act of finding flaws in someone's work, basically nitpicking, just because they can write better or publish more articles than you.
Yeah.
It even calls out dismissing someone who met the president. Like, if you say, why show off? It's just a meeting the author says the infection has taken root. You are actively exhibiting the illness.
It is a comprehensive catalog of human pettiness.
That's a great way to put it.
But the author doesn't leave it as just bad behavior. They elevate these mundane moments into spiritual disqualifiers.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because this genuinely threw me. Mixed in with the bicyclists and the sibling rivalries, the author makes a profound claim about human intellect.
Yes, the part about new ideas.
Right. The text says that resisting new ideas, new theories, new methods, and new values is a sign of jealousy.
It's a leap, for sure.
My initial thought reading that was, wait, why would resisting a new paradigm be classified as jealousy? Isn't that usually just stubbornness or traditionalism? Maybe just being conservative in how you approach your field?
To understand that leap, we really have to look at how the author diagnoses the root cause of the emotion itself.
Okay.
The text states clearly that jealousy is a sign of narrow-mindedness and lack of self-confidence. It is born from a profound sense of feeling threatened.
So it's an ego defense mechanism.
Exactly that. Under this framework, rejecting a new idea or a new method isn't merely an intellectual disagreement.
Right.
The author argues that you are subconsciously jealous of the change itself or of the person introducing it because the new idea threatens your current standing.
Ah, I see.
If a new theory shifts the ground beneath you, your hardened expertise might be devalued. Your lack of self-confidence makes you view the new concept as a competitor that diminishes your worth.
So you resist it.
You find flaws in it, you dismiss it. The text views that intellectual resistance as just another mask worn by the underlying fear and envy.
Wow. Any knee-jerk reaction against progress is basically you trying to protect your own fragile ego because you are terrified of the new paradigm. That is a heavy accusation to level at human nature. And the stakes for this diagnosis are absolute. The text establishes a non-negotiable zero-tolerance policy for paradise.
The author leaves no room for interpretation on this point.
None at all.
The text states that there is no jealousy in heaven. Anyone who desires to live in paradise must first completely eradicate this emotion from their soul.
Even a little bit.
If you retain even a tiny bit of jealousy, the author guarantees you are ineligible to enter.
Not even a fraction of it.
Yeah.
So we are faced with a massive problem.
A huge one.
If jealousy is this universally toxic, narrow-minded disease that acts as a spiritual autoimmune disorder, and we all apparently have it evidenced by our reactions to Everything from passing cars to new theories. How do we cure it?
Well, the text offers a solution, but it is entirely counterintuitive. It demands a process called cultivation.
Okay, so to understand the author's solution, we need to define cultivation in this context, right?
Right, because it isn't a passive state of just, wishing you were a better person. Cultivation is an active, daily, intentional friction against your own ego. It is the process of deliberately grinding down your own narrow-mindedness.
And my first instinct, if I need to grind down my ego and stop feeling jealous of other people, is to get away from other people.
Naturally.
I want to retreat to a cabin in the woods, close the door, and meditate until I'm at peace. But the text says that is the exact wrong approach.
Yeah, the author explicitly forbids isolation as a cure. The text states that if you try to cultivate yourself behind closed doors, away from society, you will never eliminate jealousy.
Never.
It can only be eradicated in a group living environment.
Wait, so the author is saying the cure requires the disease.
In a way, yes.
That's like saying you can't learn to sail on dry land. You have to be in the water.
That's a perfect analogy.
But wait, if groups are exactly where jealousy is triggered in the first place because you're constantly comparing yourself to others,
Right.
their successes, their new cars, their better articles, isn't putting yourself in a collective group basically asking for trouble? Aren't you just diving headfirst into the infection zone?
You are diving into the infection zone, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, the author argues that is the only way to build the antibodies.
Oh, I see.
The logic of the text is built on the mechanics of exposure therapy.
Oh,
Because jealousy is generated entirely within the context of collective life, it can only be resolved within that same context.
you can't test a bridge if you never drive a truck over it.
Precisely. If you isolate yourself on a mountain, you aren't actually curing your jealousy, you are merely hiding from the things that trigger it.
You're just avoiding the problem.
Exactly. The moment you walk back down that mountain and see someone with a nicer bicycle, the disease will flare up instantly. You haven't changed your soul's structure, you just removed the stimulus.
Wow. Okay.
Therefore, the text insists you must actively seek out collective life to practice immunity.
But there's a caveat, right?
Right, you can't just join any random group because the broader society is already severely polluted by the violence and ignorance caused by unchecked envy.
So where do you go?
The author specifies that you must find a relatively perfect group to immerse yourself in.
Which brings us to the grand pivot of the entire text.
Yeah, this is where it all comes together.
The philosophical buildup has completely cornered the reader. You are fatally ill. You cannot cure yourself in isolation. You cannot cure yourself in the sick society at large.
Right.
You need this relatively perfect group to practice your exposure therapy. So where exactly does one find it?
This is where the text transitions from a theoretical, philosophical treatise into a direct, real-world application. The author introduces a specific community called Life Zen.
Life Zen.
Yes.
And the author presents Life Zen as the living embodiment of the paradise they've been describing.
It's the physical manifestation.
It is pitched as a home on earth where there is absolutely zero jealousy. A community where the members genuinely, from the bottom of their hearts, rejoice in the beauty, talent, progress, and praise that other members receive.
I mean, imagine the psychological environment the author is promising here.
It sounds incredible.
A place completely devoid of the internal friction we discussed earlier. No one is monitoring your success with a gloomy face.
Right.
No one is dismissing your achievements with "so what?" It is presented as a laboratory where the cure for the soul's illness has already been successfully administered, and harmony is the baseline state of existence.
It sounds like an impossible utopia,
It does.
which the author clearly anticipates. Because the text ends with one of the most brilliant rhetorical traps I have ever seen in a piece of persuasive writing.
It's so clever.
After describing the flawless, jealousy-free existence of the Life Zen community, the author turns directly to the reader and writes, "You might not believe this, you might not admit it because you have jealousy."
It is a masterful piece of structural engineering.
So what does this all mean? The author builds this whole philosophy, this airtight psychological cage, and ends by saying, if you doubt my perfect community, it's just your own demonic jealousy talking.
Yeah.
It's an airtight trap. They present a radically new idea, and if your immediate instinct is to roll your eyes, find a flaw, and say, that's impossible, people don't work like that.
Well,
The author's standing right there saying, see?
you're infected.
That rejection is the exact demonic illness I just diagnosed. Your skepticism is just your infected ego trying to protect itself.
The text forces an immediate, real-time crisis of self-analysis. It operates dualistically.
Oh, so?
On the first level, it is a profound exploration of how corrosive human envy is. It challenges us to look at the micro expressions of our own bitterness.
Right.
But on the second level, it is a sharp, inescapable challenge to join a specific way of life. Regardless of whether you accept the premise of life Zen, you cannot easily dismiss the text without triggering the exact behavioral trap the author outlined.
That's the trap.
Yeah. When you feel that wave of cynicism while reading, you are forced to pause and ask, is my skepticism a rational critique? Or is this the narrow-minded defense mechanism the text just warned me about?
It holds a mirror right up to your face in the final sentence and demands that you look at your own reaction. What a journey this material takes us on.
Seriously.
We started with a metaphysical definition of jealousy as a severe architectural flaw in the soul, a spiritual poison that actively degrades your physical immune system and radiates outward to fracture societal harmony.
And then we followed the author as they grounded that massive philosophical concept in the tiny involuntary moments of daily life.
The bicycles and the new clothes.
Right. The realization that this demon reveals itself when we frown at passing cars, when we dismiss a coworker's promotion, and crucially, when our lack of self-confidence causes us to automatically reject new ideas.
From those everyday triggers, we explored the uncompromising nature of the cure, the absolute zero-tolerance policy for paradise, and the paradox of group cultivation.
The exposure therapy.
The mandate that you cannot hide from your flaws in isolation. You have to step into the arena of collective living to face them head-on, which ultimately led to the author's pitch for the Life Zen community, wrapped in that inescapable rhetorical snare.
The text simply refuses to let the reader remain passive. It demands active engagement with your own internal state.
And that brings us back to you, listening right now. We all live in a world designed to trigger this exact emotion.
Every single day.
Whether you're scrolling through social media and feeling a sudden pang of bitterness at a stranger's vacation, or sitting in a meeting watching a coworker get the praise you thought you earned.
It happens to everyone.
The text we explored today, regardless of how you view its ultimate pitch for the Life Zen community, throws down a massive challenge. It forces you to look closely at your own involuntary reactions.
Yeah.
Is your dismissiveness, your cynicism, or your resistance to other people's success actually acting as a poison in your own system? Is your ego holding you back from your own personal peace?
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
If the author is correct, and the illness of jealousy truly can only be cured by being around the very people who trigger it, what is the first environment in your own life where you could practice this active cultivation tomorrow?
Oh, that's a great question.
Your office, your family dinner table. And if your immediate reaction to this entire deep dive has been to criticize the concept or reject the necessity of a cure, is it possible that your very urge to critique is exactly the symptom the text is warning about?
Are you just trying to protect your own fragile ego because you're afraid the diagnosis is right? A spiritual illness that incubates in the soul, requiring the very friction that triggers it to finally heal. Something to think about the next time someone rides past you in a nicer car.